Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Black Theatre Workshop's online series In Conversation With. Today is Thursday, July 30th. It is 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and I am Quincy Armorer, the Artistic Director of Black Theatre Workshop. Very, very happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today is going to be a really fun conversation. I'm really, really looking forward to speaking with my guest today, who I'll tell you all about in a second. But just before we get to that, I just want to say that we are now about 4.5 months into our quarantine, which I believe started around the 15th or 16th of March. Everybody at BTW is still here, working from home, getting through, still going through those good days and bad days, more good days than bad ones, luckily. But we're still here. We're still doing what we can. We think of you often, and it's really difficult for us as an organization that is so used to interacting with our public when we have our events to not be able to do that. So I just wanted to say on behalf of everyone that we miss you. I wish I could see you. I know that you're seeing us, which is great, and we're still here for you. But we think about the wonderful patrons that we have at BTW for the past almost 50 years. And we really, really do appreciate that. Coming up in the next couple of months or so, we are eventually going to be getting to announcing our season. Of course, things are, as a result of the pandemic, pushed back a little bit. But in the next few weeks, we'll be able to let you know exactly what our 50th anniversary season is going to look like. And we are very excited to share that with you. But that will be in a couple more months. However, today we are going to be talking to a wonderful local talent who I'm really excited to tell you about. So her name is Shanice Nicole, and she is a local outspoken word artist and poet. And most recently, she has now become a published author. I'm really excited about this. She has written this book that is called Dear Black Girls. And I think it's so important to be talking to the young members of our community, especially with what's going on in the world right now. And it's such a great description that I'm going to read to you what it says here. Dear Black Girls is a letter to all Black girls. Everyday poet and educator Shanice Nicole is reminded of how special Black girls are and how lucky she is to be one. Illustrations by Kesna Dals support the book's message that no two Black girls are the same, but they are all special. That to be a Black girl is a true gift. In the celebratory poem, Kesna and Shanice remind young readers that despite differences, they all deserve to be loved just the way they are. Wonderful message. The book, I believe, is going to be made available in February of 2021, but it is currently available for pre-order. So we'll let you know how you can do that a little bit later on. But for right now, I'm really excited to have a chance to chat with Shanice and to have her explain to me and to all of you how this book came to be. So please join me in welcoming today's guest, Ms. Shanice Nicole.
Thank you so much.
Hello, Shanice.
Hi,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's really, really great to have you on the show. It's still weird for me to be calling it the show, but that's what it is. Before anything else begins, we're in the middle of this global pandemic, amongst other things that are really affecting our community, the Black communities. So the first thing I'd just like to ask you is, how are you?
Today is a good day. I'm so glad it's almost the weekend. I was just saying earlier, I'm really lucky where I work. We have summer Fridays, and so we have Fridays off, which is like the most beautiful thing. And it's interesting because it's the weekend comes so quickly, and so you're like, yay, it's the weekend, but also, oh my goodness, how is it the weekend? I still have so much left to do. So I'm like feeling that on the Thursday, but yeah, I'm good. I'm really giving myself space to feel whatever it is I need to feel, and just to take care. I really think there's something so important about us taking the most care right now of our bodies and our spirits, especially when the demand is so high. And so I'm really just trying to find, that balance that we're always forever looking for, but it feels really, really critical at this point in my life. And at this point, just, I'd say in the world to really be seeking that balance.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head there. And one of the things that for myself, and I know for other people in our community as well, maybe not everyone, but certainly for some people, that at least in the beginning of this pandemic, I know a lot of people were going through this phase of maybe a little bit of guilt almost about taking the time and attention for their self-care, which is really interesting because it's so important, especially what's going on right now. So I'm glad that you articulated that so eloquently, that taking care of ourselves, our mind, our body, our spirit, everything is very important. And we need to be unapologetic in making sure that we all take care of ourselves so that we are then able to take care of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely. And just as you're repeating it, it made me think, I just have to give a little shout out to Dr. Tama, who runs this podcast called the Homecoming Podcast. And I just highly, highly recommend it. This like incredible Black woman who it's just like what you need in your ear. Yeah. And she says it doesn't count as therapy, but it really does feel like therapy. So I highly recommend the Homecoming Podcast if anyone is really interested in that reflection and seeking balance and really thinking about taking care of all of us.
That's great. There's so many things that are coming up right now that are quote unquote therapy, but are very therapeutic. And exactly. I've been embracing so many of them as much as I can. And in many ways, I think even for me, these in isolation, having these conversations with the guests that we've had so far over the weeks, in many ways has been quite therapeutic, I think, for me and for them, and hopefully for our viewing public as well. So thank you for being a part of that.
Yeah.
Interesting thing, I was just thinking about this because guests that we've had so far, I've talked to Omari Newton and Walter Borden, Renee Lee. I've had Vlad Alexis on here, Henri Pardo, Mariah Inger, Justin Johnson. And it occurred to me, even with, talking with Mariah and Henri, that was mostly on the film side. They are also theater artists. And so
right.
I was just like, it's been a very theater-centric theme, kind of, with the guests that we've had. And I'm really glad to have you here because not that you're not a theater artist or anything like that, but we're kind of taking a sidestep and looking a little bit more at the literary arts. Which I think is super exciting. So thank you for being my guest in that area.
Love it.
And I'm so excited to talk a little bit more about this book. But before we get there, just letting people know a little bit about how you got to getting to the book. You are a poet, and you've been writing for quite some time. How long have you been writing for?
I started summer 2015. So 5 years.
5 years. Wow.
Yeah.
And so you're writing a lot of poetry, and as I mentioned, you are a spoken word artist, and I love the outspoken word artist, which is itself a wonderful.
Yes.
And so when you're writing your poetry, are there specific things that you'd like to write about, or was there something special that you were writing about that then paved the way for Dear Black Girls to come to be? Tell us a little bit about how that all started.
Right. To answer the question about like what I like to write about, I'd say there is quite a range. And I always say I don't quite have a writing practice. So I really just like write in the moment. I'm not doing as much writing right now. I'm actually doing more reading, which has been so incredible to return to. But pre-COVID, which is interesting to say, pre-COVID, a lot of like the poetry writing I would do would really be like in transit. So like walking in between buses or like walking to a metro station or on the metro. Because I have about like a 45-minute commute. So I would do kind of a lot of my writing kind of in those in-between moments. So it was really just like whatever was what I was inspired by, whether it was something that happened to me or something I'd like witnessed kind of in my community or in the world. And I would say often it was connected to like pain and hurt. And I've been trying to also just like expand that as well. Because I think that's also really important in terms of like where are the places that we create from.
Yeah.
And how do we bring different intentions to our work and to our art. And so that's something I've been reflecting on as well. Like, what does it mean to like, write poetry when you feel good?
Yeah.
So that's something I've been reflecting on. But Dear Black Girls, time is always such a trip. I'm trying to think. I want to say I wrote Dear Black Girls in the summer of 2016. Oh yeah.
Beautiful.
Honestly, Kesna is just so incredible. I can't wait for everyone to see all of the images.
I can't wait to see it too.
I know, they're so gorgeous. Yes, so I'm thinking timeline because I wrote Dear Black Girls. Actually, it was after I'm going to be discussing police brutality and violence. So just giving people the tiniest heads up. But I wrote that poem in response to what actually happened to a young Black girl named Dejaria Becton, who was at a pool party in McKinney, Texas. I don't know if you or anyone who's listening remembers this, but it was a pool party, and I want to say it was summer 2016, and she was assaulted by this cop. So I wrote this poem really thinking about Dejaria and thinking about just Black girls in general, because there was really what I felt was like a total kind of lack of response to what had happened to this young Black girl, kind of like from a wider, like from, the society at large, but really just, I think, drawing attention to the lack of attention that Black girls are given kind of across the board, but especially kind of in this context where, the conversation was happening around police violence, and here a Black girl was being violated in a really explicit way. And it was kind of like no response. So the poem really was, thinking about Dejaria, but then also, of course, thinking about so many of us who have had those experiences of not being seen or included or feeling valued or loved, or all of those things that are so important.
Right, sure. Well, first of all, hey Kenny, thank you for watching. I saw your comment before. So question for you, Shanice, so you've had these materials that I'm assuming, that come from a very, very deep place. I'm not a writer. At one point I tried to write it and then I couldn't do it. That's why I have such a great respect for people who do have the ability to take something from inside them and get it to the page rather, because it's difficult. It's so much more difficult than you think. So I wanted to find out from you the transition into having it as a poem and then it now becoming a book. Did the poem change very much in switching into book format, or is it still very much exactly how it existed when you originally wrote it as a poem?
Okay, so I will share a story and then answer like the specific
Wonderful.
Question around the shift, the changes. And so it's a really beautiful, beautiful story. But essentially and also just like full circle moment. So my very first performance, wait, what do I want to share? Actually, no, I'm confusing stories. But no, another story. So I performed Dear Black Girls at an event that Kamala Mackerel curated. And it was called the Self-Love Cabaret. And it was on, okay, this makes sense because it was Valentine's Day 2016, which means I wrote the poem. Summer 2015, actually. Okay, sorry, correction. So these details are so not important, but I performed at the show called the Self-Love Cabaret, and I shared this poem called Dear Black Girls. And while I was on stage, I also shared that I wanted to turn the poem into a children's book one day. And it just so happened that at that same event, there were different vendors who were present. And one of the vendors was Metonymy Press. Metonymy Press connected us at that event and was like, I know this person, I know you should publish her book. So that was back in 2016. And so it's been quite a few years entirely on me and my procrastination, but also just like what I'm realizing now, I don't think I was ready yet for the book to be ready. And so I feel like I'm at a place right now, and it's really like, I mean, a book like this is always necessary, but it just feels especially necessary right now. And so it feels exciting for things to have fallen into place for that to happen. But it was really a moment of me like being on stage and being like, I want this to happen. And having a friend in the audience who was like, I can make this happen. And then it happened. And so the biggest kind of part of the work lately has been working with Kesna, and so developing those illustrations, of course, and also because she's a painter, and so she's painting every single image, and then there's like a digital process, and so it really is a labor of love. But yeah, and then to answer your question about the changes, very minimal changes to the actual poem. There were slight edits. I was sharing this with a colleague this morning. Very, very slight edits to the poem itself, and I added a little bit of kind of an introduction to I guess give it more of a story. Yeah, but slight changes and things that I'm really happy about. Like one shift, for example, and again, it's like I wrote the poem a few years ago, and so just like even my way of thinking has evolved and shifted and expanded. And so one line in particular, I talk about I talk about the DNA running through your veins to refer to the Black girl's relationship with her mother, and so I've replaced the word DNA with ancestry. For me, just to create a little bit more space and just to expand what that relationship looks like, and thinking about ancestry in addition to lineage, which is not necessarily always through DNA or blood. And I think that for me is just really important in terms of thinking about relationships and thinking about how the different types of relationships as well that like Black girls and Black women and Black people have, and it's across all different lines, including bloodlines.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the procrastination a little bit earlier, but I also think that things happen when they're supposed to, and as you say, the timing it's almost, I mean, I don't want to say serendipitous, but there's just something I think very that resonates even deeper with the fact that this story and this book is happening at this moment in global history, to be perfectly honest. I think it's gonna resonate in a deeper way, hopefully in a stronger way, with not just Black readers, but hopefully beyond, which I think is really great. And thank you for that shout out to the beautiful work of Kesna. That we've only seen that one image before, but it's that's the cover. Like, how can you not want to buy that book?
I know.
A young Black girl, when you see that, it's really beautiful work. Really beautiful work.
I'm so happy.
So, what was that relationship like, working together? Like, I mean, that she or Kenza rather would create these designs, and then, but I'm assuming that there was a lot of discussion between the two of you about what visual representation should be attached to the literary representation of what you wrote. What was that relationship or working relationship like?
Totally. So I guess a few things. It was really important for me that I was working with an artist who was like as committed to the book. And I mean, like obviously, but there's a piece about it where it's equally mine and hers, and beyond that, like it really feels like something that kind of is like no longer mine in a way. But it was really important to me that I was going to connect with and work with someone who like loved it, and I think it's been a really beautiful process because I've really given Kesna like full reign to just create, and maybe too, sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I should actually give more support, but because it's like not my area of knowledge, I'm just like, I trust you. I think your art is beautiful. I want you to just draw yourself and girls that and girls that we see all of the time, or rather maybe like that we don't see all of the time. That was like a really intentional kind of decision as to like who is going to be depicted, and that went so those details were really important to us. In particular, I think about things like skin tone, facial features, hair type and hair texture, bodies as well. I really wanted people to be able to like open it and like literally see themselves or someone that they knew, and that was like really important. I want people to connect to it. So a lot of conversation and like love and intention went into the actual like, okay, who are we illustrating here, and how does it also connect with the words? Yeah.
I think there's that representation that you're talking about is so important. I'm just going to see what. Hey, Calder. Can't help but think of Kendrick's feeling. Sometimes that's just the. Oh, wow. Yeah, very, very, very good point there. Thanks, Calder, for that. But I just, before I lose my mind, you were talking about the where did it go? Where did it go? My brain. The representation for the young Black girls. It's so interesting. It always is, but just yesterday or this morning, maybe even it was on my news feed came up that something that I had posted 2 years ago on Facebook, that it was the 50th anniversary of the introduction of the Black character Franklin on the Peanuts cartoon by Charles M. Schulz, and so I was reading about that and how it was a woman who wrote to Charles M. Schulz on the heels of the assassination of Dr. King, and just was talking about how comics were so important to young people, but that Black kids never really got a chance to see themselves represented in that work. And so to hear you now talking about the importance of not just having a Black girl, but to make sure that many different body types and there isn't just one Black girl. And I love the fact that you were both talking about that and made that a part of this book, because it's not Dear Black Girl, it's Dear Black Girls. It's all of them. And so it's really nice to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's so, it's really, for me, it's like thinking about the responsibility as well, in terms of like, this is something that we're going to be creating and is going to exist forever. And I mean, I know in some way, people, you can do different, I forget what the term is when you do like an edit, like an edited edition or like the next version. But like there's such responsibility. And I think at this particular time where not just Black girls, but Black people of all genders, and also no genders are continuously being told that they are not worthy, and that they're not valued, and they don't deserve to be seen and to feel seen. And so for me, it's incredibly important that is centered in a way that is unapologetic. And that was also why it was so important for me to work with a small publisher.
Right.
Like in my mind, it was like either, a small publisher or like I will try the self-publishing thing, but I just like didn't, have the capacity to really take it on. But for a story like this, like it wasn't like negotiable for me to dilute, to whitewash, if you will. And so it was really important that we had like kind of authority over the story, which I think is so important right now in terms of like whose voices and what stories are we listening to, which stories are centered.
Totally. That's so much about what we do at BTW also. We have to find our own version of diversity within our cultural specificity, is how I like to put it. There's a multitude of voices within our Black communities. I even started to stop saying Black community and Black communities, because we're more than just one. And
absolutely
try to find the ways that we can tell the many different stories from the many different subsections of those communities. So I'm totally on board with what you're saying. I want to make sure that we let people know. So did I get that right, that it's going to be available in February, but it's available for pre-order right now, right?
Yes.
Excellent.
Exactly.
So we will put in the comments below, if you're watching this on Facebook Live right now, or if you're watching the recorded version later on our YouTube channel, go down into the comments and you'll have the information there about how you can pre-order the book, because you'll want to get it in advance. That's so great. Before we let you go, Shanice, I do want to talk a little bit more about some of the other things that you're doing, because not only are you a fantastic spoken word artist and now published author, but you're also a community activist. You do a lot of work in the community, and there's a couple of specific organizations that I think it would be really great to talk about and share with our public. And perhaps see if anybody is interested in contributing to them, because some of them are charitable organizations. They do a lot of great work for Black communities, Indigenous communities. So the first one that perhaps we can let people know about is the BFCN. And why don't I let you at least start talking about it? Because this is an organization that you founded, or was founded in 2011, and you were telling me that that it was your mom who founded it with you, or is running it right now. What's the story with the BFCN?
Yeah, so BFCN, or the Black Foundation of Community Networks. Oh, I love this technology, so cool. Is a nonprofit. It's actually based in Vaughan, which is where I grew up, so north of Toronto. And this was an organization that was actually founded by my family, and so it was a family organization. But my mom is the president right now, and so she runs it, and I support kind of virtually. Although everything now is virtual support in a way. And so this organization was really created to support and to connect the Black community.
Brilliant.
Give me 1 sec. Sorry, I was just telling my partner that we can see him in the mirror.
That's the reality of what we're facing.
I know, it's so funny.
Don't worry about it at
totally. all. Yeah, so we really are thinking about supporting Black folks in local communities in that area. And so we run a lot of different programs, such as our scholarship program, and also Friday Focus, which was like a weekly program to engage Black students and youth with also Black parents and Black adults. And so the students would do work around math literacy and Black history. And then the parents got time together to do skill sharing and participate in facilitated discussions. And so it was really just like a time to like breathe and to connect. And so a lot of the work that we do is really just about connecting people to existing resources, because what we know very similarly here to Quebec, there's like such limited resources, and then organizations have to like fight for crumbs really. And then we just end up either duplicating programs, duplicating services, not actually connecting with each other. And so BFCN is attempting to do that kind of in the GTA area to connect people with what already exists. And then our scholarship directory is probably what we're most known for. So that's like a free resource of scholarships, awards, and bursaries for primarily Black students pursuing undergraduate education across Canada. And so lots of things available there. So that's BFCN. And so it's incredible. Like my mom get 40 plus hours a week volunteering for this organization for over 10 years. And we've existed with little to no funding. And so it's pretty incredible, but we are now kind of reaching out to the community and inviting people to support. And so I also encourage people to like support locally. So I know I'm talking about the GTA context here, but if you have a couple extra dollars, please do feel free to send them that way. But there's also fundraising work that I do here locally that I'd love to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we get to the local one, we'll get to that for a second, but we've got the information on the screen right now.
Perfect.
If anyone is interested in making a contribution to the BFCN, you can send an e-transfer right there to fundraiser@bfcn.ca. And if you want to learn more, you can go to bfcn.ca for more information. I just want to also give a shout out to Karen Licorice, who's a member of the board of directors of Black Theatre Workshop, who's watching. She just came on there. Hey, Karen, thank you for being with us. And yes, so Shanice, thank you for talking about the BFCN. And hello, Nadine, how are you? And now let's move to the local market here in Montreal. What are the organizations that you want to quickly give a shout out to and let our audience know about?
Yeah. Well, not so much like organizations. I just want to kind of speak to the local or grassroots fundraising that I've been doing, and invite people to support that and to contribute. And so it's been really incredible. And what I've really just done is asked people to support whenever they can, and all of the money goes to Black and/or Indigenous community members. I'd say like 99% of it is locally. Sometimes I might do a request for something out of the Montreal or Georgia area, but for the most part, it's locally. And when I think about it being the perfect example of like the power of many, because in the past 18 months, we have raised close to $60,000, and all of that has been redistributed to Black and/or Indigenous community members.
That's fantastic, Shanice.
Yeah, it's so fantastic, but also just like, for me, it just shows like what's possible. And when I say like that's $60,000, and that's e-transfers ranging from $4 like all the way to, you know, close to $1,000. And so I'm really talking about like everybody contributing in the way that they can. And I really think that is what we need more of. Not exclusively, because what we really need are governments and institutions to
step up.
That's another call. But what I really think about is like, what are the ways that we can show up for each other while the institutions are doing what they're always going to do, you know? So I think like that collective care is so incredible. And so it's been a beautiful thing just to witness and then to also facilitate. And I'm very honored by the trust as well, because, you know, people have e-transferred me and PayPal'd me, I don't know if that's a word, but PayPal'd me $60,000. So I really do value and appreciate that trust, and all of the money has gone back into the hands of people who need it.
That's so fantastic. I mean, I think it's just so wonderful that you're taking it upon yourself to do that. And, you know, I think, you know, we get some fundraising as well at Black Theatre Workshop, and there are organizations that we try to support as well from time to time. And I always try to tell people, you know, there's no donation is too small. If you can only give, as you say, if you can only give $4 or $5, that's $4 or $5 that the organization didn't have before.
Absolutely.
You know? And so everything counts. I mean, if you have $400 or $500 and you want to do that, no donation is too big also, but like whatever people can contribute makes a big difference. And so we had the information up there, but we'll put it again in the comments if anybody wants to make any other contributions.
Yeah. And I would, if I could just add in terms of like, for folks who are interested in you know, supporting like people or organizations financially, one thing that I would just say is really think about how you can do it in an ongoing way. Because I think that really makes such a difference. And even if it's a small amount, right? But if it's like that guaranteed $5 that's coming in every month, to me, like that actually can have more of an impact than say like a $50 one-time donation. And so really thinking about like, what are the ways in which you can contribute sustainably, both for yourself, but then also about like supporting organizations. So if you have like a monthly donor program, for example, I think about, you know, one of the things that's been really helpful at Head in Hands, an organization that I support and connected to here, where like really relying and valuing the community support in the work and in the services. So for folks who are thinking about contributing in that way, really thinking about like what it is that you can give in an ongoing way to really help make like the work that we're all doing more sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, the option of being able to give monthly makes such a huge difference to any organization. And I think it's incumbent on us as organizations and as individuals to find ways to give back, to support, to lift up each other as much as we can. You know, I think we're only going to be better if we all grab each other's hands and walk together and rise together.
Totally.
Yeah, totally. It's been so great to chat with you. We're coming up on the end of our time together, but before we go, is there any last thoughts that you want to share? Just, you know, going back to the fact that, you know, it's been a difficult time for a lot of people in our community. And is there any kind of message or thought or just something that you just might want to share to people who might be out there listening? And you know, I always think of what is one thing that could, you know, might just go over most people's heads, but there might be that one person where it just lands significantly and makes a big difference for them. You know, sometimes those are the things you never know. And I also appreciate the fact that sometimes you never know when that happens, and that's fine too, because it's not about knowing that it's happened. It's just about it happening. So I just wanted to ask you if there was any final thought or anything that you wanted to share with our audience who's watching before we sign off for the day.
Yeah. Perhaps maybe a thing that's been like really important for me and kind of looping back to what I started with, around the balance. And this is, of course, for everybody, but I'm particularly thinking about always and speaking to and loving on Black women in particular. And what I want to say is that like we have permission, whether I'm giving you permission, but I'm asking you to give yourselves permission to slow down. And I know and I say that with like full knowledge of all of the barriers that make the slowing down difficult and sometimes impossible. And so I fully recognize that. But however you can, even if it's in the smallest way, like we really need to slow down and to turn inwards and to take care of ourselves and of each other, especially, and really thinking about how like taking care of ourselves is priority and paramount so that we can support each other. And we need to do that, especially now. And I think about, I think about like, Audre Lorde, who talks about, caring for oneself as being an act of political warfare, which is real and true because like Black people are under attack, right? And so we really need to think about what are the ways in which we are preserving and taking care of ourselves and our elders and our children, the babies in particular. And so my message is to like take a breath and to slow down. Like people can wait and things can wait, and everybody is always going to want something and need something and ask for something, and we do not have infinite capacity. And so I am like learning this, and so I'm talking. You asked for my like advice, but I'm just really holding up a mirror to myself. But we do not have infinite capacity, and so I want all of us to understand that. But in particular, I want Black women to hear that and to know that and to do whatever they can to take care of themselves.
It's brilliant. I heard it very clearly. Slow down, turn inward, take care. Mm-hmm. That's very, very wise advice to share with everybody. Shanice, this has been so great. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. And thank you for creating this space. It's so important for us to be like connected, however we can in these moments. So I'm so grateful.
Yes, me too. So thank you, audience, for watching. Don't forget, Dear Black Girls is going to be available in February of 2021, but look in the comments below to find out how you can pre-order it right now. And all of the other information of the organizations that we talked about earlier will also be in the comments, or you can go back and watch this on YouTube and you'll see it pop up on the screen. Mm-hmm. Don't forget to support your local organizations, particularly our Black businesses, not just Black Theatre Workshop, but all of them. But if you want to be helping to support Black Theatre Workshop, one thing that you can do right now is make sure that you subscribe to us on YouTube and Instagram, and Facebook. The more followers we have, the more people we can reach with our stories. And as I mentioned earlier, our big 50th season announcement is going to be coming up in just a few weeks, so you'll want to make sure that you're around to receive all the information about that. Thank you, all of you, for watching. We'll be back in just a couple of weeks. Once again, my wonderful, talented, beautiful, inspiring guest for today, Shanice Nicole, thank you once again.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And on behalf of everyone at Black Theatre Workshop, have yourselves a good rest of the day, a good rest of the week and weekend, and we'll see you very soon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.